I strongly believe that MicroStrategy, or now known as Strategy MSTR, has a big chance of actually becoming the most valuable company on planet Earth. About 3 months ago, someone told me, wouldn't it be logical for the company with the most Bitcoin to eventually also be the most valuable company on planet Earth if Bitcoin is the most dominant and most valuable asset on planet Earth? And this sent me down a massive rabbit hole of learning and studying MSTR from a whole new perspective. And so today I want to share with you guys why I personally believe that Strategy will become the most valuable company on planet Earth. Enjoy.
Today, a new guest. He's the daily Bitcoin educator from Austria, and he's the co-founder of Microseed. Welcome, Robin Seyr.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, question on Austria. Is Austrian economics relatively more famous or more taught in Austria than in other countries?
So I don't know how much it is taught in other countries, but it's almost not at all taught in Austria. I only learned about Austrian economics through Bitcoin. I try to teach people about Austrian economics and try to get people to understand it more. But the reality is people don't care. I think that's also what we will talk about with digital credit. I think it's really a fight that we cannot really win right now with Bitcoin. I come to the sad conclusion that most people are not made for Bitcoin. Most people will never get into Bitcoin if you don't force them into it. There is a cohort of people that say, hey, I want to be at the forefront of digital capital. I want to be at the forefront of this new monetary asset that is arising now. And they will be into Bitcoin and they will accept like the volatility, they will accept the pitfalls of early adopters. But most people will either come into that space with products like Stretch or with products or later on when Bitcoin is more stable. Because I think truly that Bitcoin will be such a huge asset one day where it's very stable. I think this is something where in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years, if Bitcoin is not a $2 trillion asset, but a $100 trillion, a $200 trillion, a $400 trillion asset, it will be very stable and almost non-moving whatsoever and just like very slowly grind upwards. And it is this like high sovereignty, very high optionality asset that you can save your money in, or it is your money. This is kind of how I look at it, which is kind of the sad reality of trying people to study Austrian economics and go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and do all of those things. And then they come out of it and they're like, yeah, I don't like it. It's too volatile. Like, oh, I bought Solana. I'm like, why did they send you down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and you come out with a shitcoin? And so I haven't given up on mainstream adoption. I just think mainstream adoption of Bitcoin looks different than romantic Bitcoiners might want it to look like. I think we have this romantic understanding of we will have Bitcoin, it's perfect, and everyone will just adopt it because they have no choice. I think they will have a choice, and I think they will adopt Bitcoin in many different ways. And those people that want high optionality, a lot of freedom, a lot of sovereignty, and all of those things, they will get into Bitcoin. But they already had 15 years time to get in there. They had already a lot of time to research that stuff. And so we probably don't have that many more individuals that can get Bitcoin at that point. We will still have like an enormous adoption level on the base layer, especially when someone comes into Bitcoin with Stretch, they might research Bitcoin more likely and they might actually get into Bitcoin. This is another thing that we can talk about today. Having those layers of Bitcoin like Stretch, like other things that then actually get people orange pilled because they are curious. Okay, I'm buying this thing, but like what is underneath it? What, like how can I maybe also have some exposure to there? Because I think everyone that is into treasury companies or products from the treasury company like digital credit, you 100% should also have an allocation to the underlying asset, Bitcoin. You should definitely have it. And I'm a very big self-custody maxi. I mean, Microseed is literally a self-custody. It's a self-custody company in a sense, because if you have self-custody, you should put your seed phrase on metal, and that's what we're doing. And so I'm very big on self-custody, and I really want people to do that. and I have a financial incentive to say so. But still, I think most people won't, because I see how people interacted with me the last 6 years and how hard it is for people to get pushed into self-custody. It's not easy. And I still think it's the most amazing thing that you can possibly do with your money, Bitcoin in self-custody, but it's just not for everyone. I think 95% of people want a very simple, convenient solutions, and they wanted to get their 5 to 15% return so they can be kind of riding with inflation, or maybe a little bit outperforming inflation, and they're fine with that. If you are okay with an asset that has drawdowns of 80+%, you're kind of a weirdo. I'm like, if you're completely fine with that and it doesn't phase you, like it doesn't phase us, it's kind of weird. Like we are not the norm. We are not the standard. We are kind of the outsiders. We are kind of that small portion of the society. Yeah, like a very small subset of the group of the society that is okay with their money going up by 5x, then going down 80%, and then going up like 10x again, and then we're going down 70% again. It is a new thing and very scary, and not everyone is built for that. If you're built for that, take advantage. Like, don't buy stretch. Buy Bitcoin, maybe buy some strategy, and like ride that wave the next 10, 20 years. That's the best thing you can possibly do. But 95% probably won't do that, even if we really force them to do it.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, because you dropped a lot of knowledge, and you planted a lot of seeds already into my head. But you were talking about volatility in the future. So this is like this. I hear people saying there won't be volatility in the future, and other people say there will always be volatility because it depends on how you measure it. Like if you measure it in the US dollar, in fiat currencies, like Bitcoin is a stable system. It's maybe one of the most stable systems that people engineered, but like the US dollar or the fiat currencies are like unstable. The currency rate between those two currencies are like inherently unstable. How do you think about that?
I think no matter what you measure Bitcoin in, the volatility in US dollar, the volatility in euros, the volatility in purchasing power, no matter what underlying thing or index or asset you want to measure Bitcoin in, even like gold, the volatility of that Bitcoin will always go down over time. Now, this doesn't mean that we can have a short period of time where we have higher volatility than in the past, and then volatility continues to go down because maybe the US dollar is hyperinflating, maybe the euro is hyperinflating, maybe gold is having huge up and down swings, and that's why Bitcoin relationship to gold is volatile, but then it's more on gold. So I think Bitcoin in itself as an asset will decrease the volatility when measured in purchasing power. That's the best way I can probably say it. But this is still a long time because we had in 2012, 2011, 2014, Bitcoin was a 80 vol, 90 vol asset. We had like huge drawdowns with huge upswings. It was crazy to be in that time in Bitcoin. I was not there. I can only talk from the historical data. Now, we had huge drawdowns already from 2022. I think we went down from around 69K to around 16 or 17 or 15K. This is a massive drawdown, almost 80% of 477, something like that. Now we're down about 50% as of this recording, and people are already like crazy about it, and they're already like, this is horrible. This is like Bitcoin is dying. It's over. Like this is kind of the sentiment of Bitcoin right now. And I'm like, it's just 50%. Like just a couple of years ago, we had 70+%. We could go down further. We could go down to 20K, 30K, whatever, 40K. It doesn't look like that. I feel like there's a very strong resistance above 50K, 58 maybe, something like that. But we can definitely go down if it's not out of the ordinary. And so I think the crazy upswings and the downward drawdowns or the corrections, however you want to call it, are going to be less, especially now that the people that are coming into Bitcoin are more institutional, especially now that the underlying asset just gets to be bigger. Like if the asset has a total market cap of 200 million, it is it's a lot easier to move that 200 million than it is an asset to move that is 2 trillion. Imagine we catch up with gold, then we are like 30 trillion, 40 trillion dollar asset. Well, it's like a lot harder to move that because then we are 20x bigger than now. Imagine we are at 200 trillion. Like it will be very hard to move Bitcoin because a lot of money has to decide to buy in or buy out of Bitcoin at the same time. And there has to be huge catalysts. And also not only the bigger of the money, but also over time, as asset matures, people get more convenient with that and get more confident with that asset. And so people trust it more. And so people are less likely to jump out and jump in every time they hear some news. And so all those factors over a long period of time will get Bitcoin to be a lot less volatile and have a more stable course. Now, to be as stable as a stretch, for example, it will take a very long time. We will have probably another 10, maybe 20 years of volatility in front of us before we get to a state where it's very non-volatile. Because Bitcoin has another 20, even like 30 years down the line of, let's say, 20% return, maybe 25, maybe 30% return, depending on what you're kind of looking at. And so if you have about a 30% CAGR, you have some volatility. It's not possible for an asset to return
to get there.
Exactly. Like you cannot expect an asset to have a 30% upwards movement in just like a straight line. It will go up like that. And so if you don't want that volatility, there are options now out there for you that still are better than your bank account or even better than your S&P 500 investment, because even the S&P 500 has quite some volatility in there, like Stretch, like other products. So, but I highly encourage people, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you most likely already are. But if you are right now aware in 2026 of Bitcoin, you might own Bitcoin and you are interacting with Bitcoin, please take advantage of that because there are not a lot of people there. It's maybe 50 million, maybe 100 million people that understand Bitcoin, own Bitcoin, interact with Bitcoin, and are aware of Bitcoin in like right now, 2026. So you are, even with a small portion in Bitcoin, even if you have just $1,000 in Bitcoin, you are in a club that is very rare. And most people don't understand how rare this club of just having $1,000 or $10,000 or 100K in Bitcoin is, because not a lot of people will have even access to this base layer Bitcoin in the long run. It's also something that we can talk about, where how many people will have access in the future to main chain base layer Bitcoin. I don't think that many. Like there's not that much space for people to transact with. It's maybe like 1% of the population, maximum 5%, depending on how we continue developing the code also, and also some kind of improvement proposals. But the main point for me is the volatility will go down. Mainstream adoption will not happen on the base layer. And if you are now aware of all the things that I'm saying, have base layer adoption. like get yourself the seat on the base layer, and you can get fancy with strategy and with amplified Bitcoin and with maybe like borrowing against your Bitcoin outside of that. Be safe out there, but like you can get fancy with it and have your cash not in like dollars or euros, but have it in Stretch and Stream. This is all very fine, but make sure you have base level access to Bitcoin in 2026 if you are aware of what's going on right now.
Yeah, amen to that. So this is literally why I reached out on X to you, because I think the combination that you are representing as a person that is interesting in Bitcoin is like, I think you can, I don't know what the real Bitcoiner is, but like you're like a self-custody Bitcoin maximalist, but you're also interested in like the other side strategy. What are they doing? Just not only, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just to learn about the space and what they're doing. So that's why when I read that on X, I asked you to come on to the podcast, because I think your journey is like the perfect way for my audience to hear about how you looked at strategy before you dove in, how you think about it now, but also the pros and the cons. Because I've got this feeling on X that there's like this binary thing, like, or you're pro Bitcoin, self-custody, maximalist, or you're this suit guy, this Bitcoin treasury company, digital credit fanboy, and it's one of the other. But there's a lot of middle ground, and I really want to hear your story, the things you learned, and how you look at this topic. So can you start out what you thought before you started to learn about it?
Yeah, I think first of all, I want to address this binary thinking in the community, which I really hate, and I think is only there and visible on Twitter. I think people are more rational in real life. People are more rational on podcasts. They tend to be very extreme on Twitter. So there's this one extreme of you are a self-custody Bitcoin maximalist, which I count myself actually in. And then you say, I hate everything that has to do with Bitcoin, but it's not real Bitcoin, not real like base layer self-custody Bitcoin with your running your own node and all of that. I understand it. I'm in that camp myself, but you also have to be open to the reality. You have to be open to what's going on outside of our small Bitcoin bubble. And you have to understand that there are interesting products and services around the ecosystem that actually might make sense in a way for ETFs, for pension funds to get access to Bitcoin, for someone that has something in an equity portfolio, have some strategy in there. And maybe you have better ways to actually borrow against your strategy than having to borrow against your Bitcoin. And maybe you want to have a cash reserve so you can buy Bitcoin when it's dipping, and you don't want to have that cash reserve somewhere in a euro fund or a dollar fund where you get 1 to 4%. For it, you maybe want to have it in a stretch or stream where you get 10%, 11%, 11.25 or something like that is the current rate for stretch. And so I see that side of like self-custody, Bitcoin Maxi, like you have everything in there. But there's a reality out there of equity markets, of digital credit markets that can have an interesting role in your portfolio that should not be discounted. And the other side is also something that I don't understand, of like, just want to have strategy and I don't want to have to do anything with Bitcoin, because I have to question that a little bit of, if you fully understand strategy, you have to also fully understand Bitcoin. If you fully understand Bitcoin, you kind of have to have some for yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you kind of have to have some access to the base layer, because then you see the freedom and the sovereignty and the optionality that Bitcoin, the asset, gives you. Why wouldn't you want that also in your portfolio? So like, I kind of, if you are binary on one side, I would encourage you to look at the other side and play with that. If you have 100% Bitcoin self-custody, maybe just open some brokerage account and try some strategy out. Like just like buy like one share of strategy and investigate and listen to the next earnings call. Like just like be curious, just be open-minded and just like see what's actually going on. On the other side, if you never had self-custody Bitcoin, like, how the heck do you want to invest in anything related to Bitcoin if you don't even know how self-custody is done, how you run a node and all of, like, invest like $500 to do self-custody, run a node and put something, put $100 in your own self-custody wallet. It's a no-brainer to actually get to know the assets that your company is holding. Like it's even if it doesn't make sense for you financially, it's a thing where you can educate yourself. So like binary on either side, I wouldn't recommend. And so that's, and I actually looked at that way. I was very long in the other camp of having only self-custody Bitcoin. And I looked at, I think Chase Palmery, I've mentioned it all the time. Like I think his strategy pilled me because he casually mentioned, yeah, like why wouldn't the company with the most Bitcoin be the biggest company on planet Earth? And I'm like, okay, I have a hard time seeing any other company other than Strategy getting to have the most Bitcoin. And I kind of agree that if you are a company with the most amount of Bitcoin, at some point you will be in the top 3 companies in the world. Like that is almost impossible to play it in any other way. If the execution is okay, if they don't fuck up, or like there's a lot of execution and management and all of those risks associated with every security. So like be safe, be curious, look into it, like listen to the earnings calls, listen to the 10K, like read the 10Ks, 10Qs and all of those things. But that kind of like made it click for me of how I might want to listen to that. I might want to look into that because like Strategy right now is what, a 40, 50, 60 billion dollar company, something like that from the market cap. The biggest company on planet Earth right now, I think it's Nvidia with 4 to 5 trillion US dollar market cap. That's a long way to go for Strategy. And that's not even factoring in inflation. If we inflate, like I remember the time when the biggest company on planet Earth had like $1 trillion of market cap. Now we have 5x of that. And this was not that long ago because I'm not that old. And so what will be the biggest company on planet Earth in 10 years? They probably have like $20 trillion of market cap. They're probably like 4x of that, maybe probably even more than that, maybe even 30 trillion. And so I can see Strategy being one of the top 5 companies at a market cap of 10 to 30 trillion, depending on how the inflation goes, depending on how hard the US dollar is debasing. There's a lot of questions in there. But without inflation, I can see them reaching like 3 to 4 to 5 trillion dollars of market cap, like with no inflation from today on. And so the opportunity is real. The opportunity is huge. And I do think they have a realistic chance of massively outperforming or amplifying. I think they like the word amplifying more than outperforming, amplifying Bitcoin. And so if Bitcoin goes up 10%, they will go up 20%. If Bitcoin go up 2x, they can go up 2.5x, maybe 4x. And so this is really interesting asset, a really interesting equity that you should at least look into it. Like, don't take my word for it. I always encourage people to study themselves and see the assets, see the equity, see the thing that they're actually getting into it. And also the first thing for very new people, before you look into Strategy, make sure you understand Bitcoin. Because Strategy investment only makes sense if you already understand what Bitcoin is. Because if you believe that Bitcoin is going to zero, all of what Strategy is doing does not make sense to you, obviously. And so that's kind of where I ended up of, oh yeah, like Strategy has probably a place in my portfolio. And I think I've told you this only before we started recording. I've bought Strategy the last, I think, 3 months now, every single week. Like I'm DCAing the same way I did with Bitcoin now into Strategy. I'm still buying Bitcoin also. So I'm kind of splitting my focus to Strategy and Bitcoin. I've played with the thought of selling some Bitcoin to buying Strategy, but I abandoned this thought. I don't want to sell Bitcoin at all. I want to do the same thing as Saylor and Strategy is doing, not selling Bitcoin. He mentioned recently on stage at the Bitcoin for Corporations, he has a degree in hodling. I like to think that I also have that degree after soon 6 years of hodling Bitcoin and not selling, even though I spent Bitcoin because I do have an operating business and I earn and actually spend also in Bitcoin, which I don't count for selling because every month I have more Bitcoin than the previous month. So I wouldn't call it selling if you stack more Bitcoin. So that's kind of my thoughts on why I did what I did and my thoughts on not being binary. The most effective way to buy Bitcoin is to DCA dollar cost average or ECA euro cost average into your Bitcoin position long term with the Relai app. It's the consistency of buying every day, every week, every month that compounds and really builds the position that you want to have in Bitcoin. And for that, I'm using Relai. Relai is Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks or anything else. This is a tool, an app, the biggest one in Europe that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. Relai is also self-custodial. So from the first second onwards, where you buy the Bitcoin on Relai, they are in your self-custodial control. They never have the keys to your Bitcoin. No freezing of your assets, no counterparty risk, no rug pulling whatsoever. And honestly, it's the simplest app that I've ever used in the whole Bitcoin ecosystem. Super easy to set up and super easy to buy your Bitcoin consistently. So set up your DCA and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Finally, we have BTC Prague back in 2026. And this year, I'm not only speaking on a panel, but I'm actually going to present an interesting new angle, a perspective, a Bitcoin thesis at BTC Prague this year for the first time ever. I've never done that on any other conference, so this will be a fun one. If you listen to this show on a regular basis, I would love to meet you in Prague this year. It's very high signal, no noise, and Prague is just a freaking amazing city with awesome drinks and a lot of good food. Use code Robin to get 10% off, and if you buy with Bitcoin, you get an additional 5% off your ticket price. I'll see you there in Prague.
I think what people really should know who are listening to this conversation from us Bitcoiners, that there's also this paradox with Michael Saylor and strategy, because I'm writing for the Bitcoin layer, and this side of corporate finance and the Bitcoin treasury companies, that's a side that I also cover. So I cover on-chain analytics and Bitcoin treasury companies, and more like the digital credit sphere. But there's this paradox because Michael Saylor is saying don't sell your Bitcoin. And I think a lot of Bitcoiners sold some Bitcoin to buy strategy at high valuations. They lose money and they're upset. Like, Saylor loves Bitcoin. He talks about Bitcoin all the time. So he gets invited on conferences. But like, Bitcoiners is almost the only market he shouldn't, strategy, MSTR and STRC is not for Bitcoiners. It's for all the other people. It's more important for all the other people than for Bitcoiners, because Bitcoiners already have the more superior asset. They're already, like you told, they're already used to withstanding the volatility. They might do self-custody. Like, it's almost the only group of people you shouldn't, and he's not selling it, in my opinion, he's not selling MSTR to Bitcoiners. He just enthusiastically tells about Bitcoin and tells what he's doing with Bitcoin, and other Bitcoiners get enthusiastic as well, and they might sell Bitcoin for MSTR, but he never said MSTR is better than Bitcoin, because he said Bitcoin is the best asset to hold. You should hold Bitcoin. You shouldn't sell Bitcoin. So this is just one thing I also want to point out, because I think if Bitcoiners accept that Saylor isn't really like targeting other Bitcoiners to sell their Bitcoin to buy MSTR, like, it's something that did happen, but I don't think it was his intention. He just told what the company is doing, and people, maybe it was their own decision to sell Bitcoin to get more Bitcoin, but in that process, you can lose Bitcoin. And I think there's a lot of frustration coming from that side. I think if we didn't have that, or maybe if that's subsiding, then there's more room for objectively looking at Bitcoin and strategy as a whole. I don't know what your thought about that.
Yeah, there is so much talk about what someone should do or should not do. If Saylor is a good actor or bad actor, if strategy is good or bad for Bitcoin, I don't care. Bitcoin is for everyone. Bitcoin is an open source protocol. Everyone can interact with it. Everyone can do whatever they want to do with it. It survived the last 16, 17 years of attacks from nation states, from high net worth individuals, from very smart people, and it will survive all the other attacks that will also come to it. It's kind of you can't kill it. Like, we are above the stage of anything being bad for Bitcoin. And so if you think about what Bitcoin represents, think about what Bitcoin actually is, it is that stable asset that is there for everyone, that gives you freedom, gives you sovereignty, gives you everything you need to survive. And you can just do that and have that asset. Like, talk around what is the next best Bitcoin improvement proposal that we have to implement? What is that person trying to sell Bitcoin or strategy to the Bitcoiners? Like, I don't care. If Saylor was able to kill Bitcoin, Bitcoin was never ready to be sound money. Bitcoin was never ready to be the global digital asset, the money for everyone that we thought it was. And so if Saylor for some reason turns out to be a bad actor, which I don't think, will kill Saylor and not Bitcoin. If it's Saylor versus Bitcoin, I bet on Bitcoin every single time. And the same thing Saylor himself is doing. He's betting as big on Bitcoin as probably anyone else. And so it's kind of hard to say now. There's this talk, of course, like he wants to sell his IOU to buy more Bitcoin. How is that different now from all the shitcoins? Because they sold their IOUs or their shitcoins to people and bought Bitcoin with that. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. But if you don't get the difference between some random individual creating a shitcoin in their bedroom and what strategy is doing, then I cannot help you. Like, if you don't get the difference between like Moon Token 123 and what MSTR and strategy represent with stretch and the financial engineering to get a 500 million market cap company to a $50 billion market cap company with 700,000 Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Yeah, it's very simple. So I don't know if this answers your question, but I try to tune out the noise around Bitcoin, around what Bitcoin has to be and how we Bitcoiners have to interact and do. I'm also annoyed by every Bitcoiner has to go to the gym. Yes, I love going to the gym. And yes, I think it's a good idea. And you should go to the gym 100%. But if you're not going to the gym, you can still be a Bitcoiner. And if you're not eating steak every day, you can still be a Bitcoiner. So I think this is tribalism. And I think it's good for Bitcoin. The tribalism is actually good. I think it's something that like people can get behind, and like this is a movement and people want to have belonging to something. They want to be in a group. They want to feel something. And for that, it's good. But for the intelligent investors out there and for the people that think about innovation long term, they just want to have the best asset possible and move on with their life. Don't get me wrong. I love eating steak. It's fucking awesome. I love going to the gym. It's fucking awesome. I love touching grass. I live currently in Vienna and I want to move out to more rural areas of Austria because I miss the grass. I miss the forest. I was born in a village where the forest was right next to me. Like, we had our home And then there was a street about 3 meters. And then there was a forest that was huge. You could never like go through the whole forest in one day because it was that huge, which has its challenges. We had a lot of bugs and a lot of animals in our home because they come from the forest. So it's not all amazing living next to the forest, but it's way better than living into the city. All of those Bitcoin ethos things, all of those like, this is Bitcoin, I agree with like almost all of them. Maybe not with the get sunburned and don't use sunscreen. Like I know all the bad things that are in sunscreen, but protect your skin also. Like if you burn your skin, it will not be good for you. So if you're not using sunscreen, please protect your skin in some other way, because getting burned and getting red on the skin is, I have a very hard time believing that is healthy, but I'm not a doctor, so I might be wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm strongly in favor of all of those things, but I don't think if you're not doing those things or you're not in favor of those things, that you're not a Bitcoiner. You are a Bitcoiner if you hold Bitcoin. That's it. Yeah. There's no other qualification that you have to meet, no other requirements, no other hoops that you have to jump through. Just buy Bitcoin. I think that's a requirement. And even I hate shitcoins. Like I couldn't hate shitcoins more. When Saylor said on the stage recently, Solana and Ethereum, something in me was like, I like it's in my guts where I'm like, I couldn't even like say those words without vomiting. But if you hold 10% of your wealth in Bitcoin and 5% in Ethereum, you're still a Bitcoiner for me. Even though you don't get that Ethereum is a scam and that you will lose all your money, most likely. But yeah, we can disagree on things, and I still like you and you're still a Bitcoiner, and it's still fine, and you don't have to eat a steak per day.
Yeah, and the thing you said about that Bitcoin is anti-fragile, and like if Saylor is able to kill Bitcoin, then Bitcoin wasn't like the almost the near perfect money that we thought it was. And this reminded me to the Jane Street talk now on X, is like the 10 a.m. slam from Jane Street. They were the guys that like put the price down from $126,000 to $60,000. And I read that James Jack said, like, if this one company can break Bitcoin down, like Bitcoin wasn't the thing that we all thought it was. Probably the company isn't solely like manipulating the price down. Probably people just sold. They had a lot of profit. They just sold, and maybe there are a few trading firms who jump on a trend and maybe exacerbate it, but not are the sole driver of the whole downtrend. And I really share that same viewpoint. And about Austria, my wife and I went to the United States for 3 weeks a few years ago, and we went also to the Yosemite Park, and we could park our RV on the Yosemite camping site. And we saw El Capitan, and it was amazing. But last year, we bought our own caravan and we went to Italy, but Austria is our middle stop because Austria is so beautiful. And I said to my wife, we were on the campsite and we were at Kruphof. There was, I forgot the name from the village, but I said, I think this is more beautiful than the Yosemite Park. And we have this like in Europe, we have this, and it's like Austria is like one gigantic national park, and it's amazing. It's beautiful. So yeah, just want to touch on that point too.
I think just to share a brief story on that, because I have all my businesses in America and most of my audience is in America. I have all the reasons to move to America, and hey, maybe I do it one day. But one thing that really I would miss is the quality of food, the quality of the food also in the normal supermarkets, the drinking water, the infrastructure, and just the beauty of Austria everywhere you go. You can drive with the car around and it's just like so mesmerizing beautifully. And I didn't get that beauty up until I started traveling a lot. The more I travel outside of Austria, the more I'm like, shit, Austria is fucking beautiful. So I get where you're coming from, but I'm biased. So I'm happy to hear that from someone that is not from Austria, the same thing. But yeah, I'm definitely biased towards Austria.
Yeah. I can imagine that. So let's jump back on strategy and the digital credit. And you came to the same conclusion I did, that if Bitcoin is going to succeed, it's most likely that strategy will succeed.
Yeah, was an investor before Bitcoin, and I love things that can 10 to 100x. So if there's a possibility of 100x, I'm interested in it. And I think Bitcoin has the chance in the end to be, without inflation, $400 to $500 trillion asset, which would mean, I don't know, I think we are under 2 trillion, but let's just say for easy math, we're at $2 trillion currently of the market cap of Bitcoin. This would mean a 20x, no, 200x from here. And so it is still in the rule of it can x from here, which is always my rule. If I don't see a path to 100x over a very long period of time, I'm less interested in that. That's why I'm not interested in Tesla anymore. I invested in Tesla when it was a lot smaller, rode the wave. I think I made with Tesla like a 12x or 15x or something like that. But it's no longer that interesting because I have a hard time seeing Tesla 100xing from here without inflation. With inflation, they can definitely 100x because inflation can go wild, but then I don't have anything from that. So if an asset doesn't do X, I'm not that interested in it. And then it's just about the probability or the likelihood of it doing that. Bitcoin, I'm at a probability of like 98%. Like I haven't been so bullish on Bitcoin in a long term. Like all the things that I've imagined have been doing way better than I've imagined. I've been now in Bitcoin 6 years, and every year I'm positively surprised how much we have done. Not from a price standpoint, just from an adoption standpoint. With strategy, I'm still forming my conviction level. I'm still forming the probability or the likelihood it will 100x, but it definitely can. Like it can do 100x very easily, actually. So if it just gets to ride the Bitcoin wave and just gets to be let's say it creates in premium. It never gets more premium than now. I think I just looked it up on the phone. It has a 1.22 MNAV from the enterprise value, as you said. If it never gets above that, or even if it gets a little lower than that, let's say a 1.1 or 1.15 or something like that, a 15% premium, a 20% premium, something like that, it will still be 100x if they don't mess it up. And that's what I think what Saylor always means with the laser focus on like not buying other companies and all of that. They have to keep that laser focus on building digital credit on top of digital capital. And I think they have a chance to, in a very long time frame, I'm not talking 5 years, I'm more talking like 20, 30, 50 years. So like when I'm in my retirement home doing one podcast a week and talking with like 90 years old about the old stories, at that point, I think we can see a strategy 300xing from here. It's a possibility, especially if Bitcoin also does that. But even if Bitcoin is not that successful, strategy will still be a great asset, still be a great company. This is the dangerous part of the whole thesis. And this is the dangerous part of what I realized. They accumulated in 2026, on average, about 900 Bitcoin a day. That's huge. Strategy is an accumulation monster currently of Bitcoin. They have been not as rapidly increasing their Bitcoin stake as never in history. And we are in a Bitcoin bear market. Imagine what they can do with all the excitement of a Bitcoin bull market, with a higher premium, with the stretch protocol being more established, with all of those things. It is crazy for me the possibility they have to raise money in an absolute bear market with such a low sentiment, with such a bad feeling from the investors. So my thesis on strategy currently gets a little bit more bullish every single week. I'm not finished yet. And I promised this to the community. I promised that to the YouTube community. At some point, I will dive very deep in all my thoughts I have around strategy and write it down a thesis. I might do an article, 100% will do a video. Will probably be like at least an hour long, maybe 2 hours. I don't know, because I have a lot of thoughts now already in my head around that asset. And I will release that and give all of you guys my full thoughts and like lay it all in front of you guys. And you can hold me then accountable for the next 20 years, how great or bad I was with strategy. But I truly believe that this will be an amazing equity play. And if you want to, let's put it that way. If you don't want to hold equity, if you think you're a full Bitcoin self-custody maxi like I was or I am, and you believe that the whole stock market and all equities and everything that is denominated in US dollars will all go to shit and everything will crashing down and everything will go to zero and therefore strategy also goes to zero. Okay, stay in Bitcoin self-custody, you will be safe, you have your 30% CAGR, and you will be doing phenomenal. This will be absolutely crazy good. But if you think the stock market will still be there in 50 years, if you think that the equity market, the credit market, the traditional financial space on top of Bitcoin will still be there in 50 years, then I think having a play of Bitcoin in a stock portfolio gives you a lot of more playroom, a lot of more leverage to play around with your Bitcoin if you invest in strategy. For example, if you want to borrow against the asset, highly, strongly do not recommend doing that with Bitcoin, because you should not give away your Bitcoin, and they usually want your Bitcoin if you want money from them. Do it with your strategy stock. You can borrow against your strategy stock. It's a lot safer. It's a lot more tested out. The rates are way cheaper. I don't know what you guys get in the Netherlands or what you guys get in America, but I'm getting offered like 5%, 4%, 6% for borrowing against my stock portfolio without even talking to a bank consultant. Just like getting the I forgot the name they're calling it, but getting the borrowing against your stock portfolio rate is like 6% as a standard rate. So if you talk with a bank consultant, talk with some guy, you probably get it down to 5 or 4%. Currently, Bitcoin is like the lowest I ever saw was like 8%.
Yeah,
that's horrible. That's way don't do that. Don't do it for 8%. And you don't want to have a duration on that. Like with the stock portfolios, you usually don't have a duration on that. And there's a lot of safety rules around that. And they're tried and tested for like decades and decades. With Bitcoin, it's like a new thing and you can get liquidated. The worst possible thing that you can possibly do is buy Bitcoin, put in self-custody, put like hundreds and hundreds of hours into that, then get hard on borrowing against your Bitcoin. Bitcoin crashes down to 10K. You get liquidated out of all your assets, all your Bitcoin, and then you're ripping up to $1 million and you're crying your beds to your mom. Like that's literally the worst thing that can happen. And it's not impossible if you're not safe. And so I do not recommend you guys to borrow against your Bitcoin. Borrowing against your stock is a lot safer, which sounds weird because strategy has a higher volatility than Bitcoin. But the economics, the guidelines, and the tried and tested ways of borrowing against your equity is a lot easier than with your Bitcoin. I still don't do it. I still recommend don't even do it with strategy. Don't do that. Bitcoin is already so strong in CAGR perspective, you don't need that for that. But if you really want to do it more with strategy than with Bitcoin. That's kind of the message.
Yeah. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly find finding that correct setup for you personally. They're also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC-free Bitcoin. That's why I use Simple Mining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together.
I just wanted to ask you one more thing before we close up, Robin. You interviewed Michael Saylor, I think 1 year ago. What kind of guy is he? And what was it in Prague? Did you interview him in Prague, or where did you meet him?
I interviewed Michael Saylor now, I think about 1.5 years ago. And because people always ask me that, oh, how did you get to Saylor? I did not get to Saylor. Like he basically followed me on Twitter, and I asked him, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? And he said yes. And that's the whole story. There's no weird third connection that connected me, or like nothing fancy going on. Like I didn't had a interesting story how I met him. Like it's literally that easy. He followed me on Twitter and I asked him if you want to be on, and he said yes, and that's the whole story. And I met him. It was my first ever in-person podcast that I did with anyone on my podcast, and Saylor was kind of the first one. It was the hardest test run that I had ever to do, and it was fun, but it was also nerve-wracking. I have to say, if you guys watch that video now, you will probably see here and there some like shaking in me. I think I don't show it too much, but like I really did shake a lot inside. And to know which kind of guys is, I think it's not I don't have a strong insight in his psyche and what he is as a person, because I've only met him for the podcast briefly. But one thing I want to share is this guy not only talks about laser focus, he is super laser focused. It starts with like obviously his assistant and all of that. Like they check out like about 20 minutes, 30 minutes before he comes. I think that everything is set up and everything is like open and like the microphones and everything is ready, because obviously you don't want to waste his time. You want to have everything ready when he's coming. He's coming. Hi, no small talk. Sit down. What are we going to talk about? What is the topics? And then just like, it was fun because I offered him to have inputs in the questions and the topics and all of that. Didn't care. Like he never reached back on that front. So it was not like he selected the questions or like any topic. Like obviously he doesn't need to do that, and obviously he doesn't do that also, just because some people also ask that. And then when it comes to like the sit down, we sat down. It was really interesting to me because he cares about the details. He cared about that there was a class standing in front of him and he wanted that not in the shot and like put it down because it was like optical not as good, and like he had the band of the conference still on there, and he asked if someone has a scissor to like cut the band off because he didn't like it. Like I was impressed by the small things he cared for and the love at the details. That was really interesting and crazy for me to see. But then other than that is the laser focus that he has and that he really puts on everything. He just sat down and said, how many questions do you have and for how long are we going? And I just told him like I have about 10 questions and we're going for about 1.5 hours. And he said like, let's start. That's like those were the only 2 sentences that I've exchanged with him in person. It was like, hello, how many questions and how long are we going? And then let's start. Like that's all. Like that's the input I got from him. Then we had the whole podcast. So after that, you can just see it on my podcast, what I did with him. And then after that, he stood up, said, thank you for setting it up. And off he goes. He has a laser focus. He sits in the car, has his iPad, works, watches, like whatever he does on the iPad, and is focused on that one mission, getting Bitcoin to the world, creating digital credit and doing what he does. And I think a more interesting insight is not only from the podcast, but also I was at the 100K party that he was throwing around a year ago. Yeah, like was this last year? I think it was last year, right?
Yeah.
Gosh. So I think this was like literally last year, so like 1 year and like 2-3 months ago. And this was interesting because I thought he might be partying a little bit. Like it's his 100K party. It is his home. Like he can relax and he can lean back a little bit and like drink a little bit. I've never seen a glass in his hand. Like, of course, I've not stalked him the whole night, but I've never seen every time I saw him in the party, and it was not that crowded. It was like 200 people. So I've never seen him with a glass in the hand. I've never seen him, I've not even seen him anything eating. So like, he is laser focused and was just focused on walking around, talking with the people, providing value, seeing everyone, and was just like very focused and very in his element. And just like one thing that people underestimate, this guy is super nice. I'm a fucking nobody. And when he met me for the first time, I was even less of a nobody than I'm now. And he takes the time out to say hello, to be on my podcast, to invite me and my fiance, back then girlfriend, to his house for the 100K party. He came up to us, said hello, thank you for coming. He said, thank you for all the things that you're doing and providing for the Bitcoin community. And talked with my fiance. Like this guy does not have to be that nice. He has a lot of power, a lot of wealth, a lot of influence to be an asshole. But he chooses not to be an asshole. He chooses to be nice, cheerful, productive, and overall a great person. And a little bit of a problem I had with the interview he did on Danny.
What Bitcoin did. Yeah.
This was a very big controversy.
Yeah.
And one thing is very sure, he's very direct. And I think that's what you saw. I think people are not used to having someone that is very focused on an idea and very clear on something if he wants to be very straight. Like he's not the buddy that like sits back and relax with you, have a beer and like talk. Like that's not him. He's very like, you give him an idea. And actually, Jeff Walton, you had him on the podcast. He talked about this on True North, which was really interesting to hear. He had like 30 minutes of with Saylor in private, and he pitched him something. And he talked about that on True North, like Jeff. And he had an idea for, I think, something insurance, Bitcoin insurance or something like that. And he pitched that. And about like 8 minutes later, he just said like, it's a stupid idea. Like it will not work, this and that and all of those things. And then they still have 20 minutes left. And I actually like those kind of people. And I see where some people might think that's like bad behavior, not nice and all of that. I think it's actually nice.
It's honest.
If I'm wasting someone else's time, I hope they tell me, because then I'm also wasting my own time. I'm not as confrontational as he is. I'm also a lot younger, so I might develop that still. But I think having just a laser focus personality that will tell you if you're wasting your time and you are investing your time in a bad idea, I like that more than gaslighting me into doing something that is not worth doing anyways. So all that to say, I think he is kinder and nicer than people portray him. And he's as laser focused and as straight and direct as people, I think, believe that he is and what he also says. So that, but again, I'm not a good friend of his. I'm just like, observer of him. I saw him on 2 occasions. I haven't had a long conversation with him outside of the podcast. My insights to his personality is probably the same as most people that watch him on the internet. Maybe some people watching me even more than me and have probably better insight to his personality than me. So I'm not a Saylor expert by any means.
Where can people find your content on the internet? And are there maybe conferences where you planning to attend that people can meet you or will find you?
Yeah, the 2 main events that I will do this year, and probably a lot more smaller ones here and there, but is the Bitcoin Las Vegas one coming up in not too long of a time. In, I think, end of April, it is in Las Vegas, which will be amazing. I think they have already sold like 30,000 tickets or something crazy like that. So there will be a lot of people there, no matter what the price will be. I think the price could actually surprise some people at that time. And then the next one will be BTC Prague. I'm really looking forward to Bitcoin Prague. Both of them are very different in what kind of feeling they have. And I think both of them are very important for the Bitcoin community. Outside of them, I probably do Amsterdam again. I probably do Bitcoin Mina again. Before Las Vegas, I'm actually at a very small one in Switzerland that is German speaking. The Swiss Bitcoin conference. So only relevant for a very small amount of audience here that might tune in from Austria, Switzerland, or Germany. And yeah, other than that, I will do not as many conferences as last year. I think in last year I did like 8, 10. This year I probably keep it with 4 or 5, something like that. It's still a lot, but it's like I wanna be more selective with the conferences that I'm doing this year.
Yeah. Makes sense. And what's the name of your podcast? Where can people find your YouTube content and your X content?
The most important thing is if you listen to this podcast, give this podcast from Johan a like, the Digital Credit Frontier podcast a like, share it with your people, and there's no need to search for mine. You already have the best podcast here.
Thank you, Robin. So thank you for your time. I will put your podcast in the show notes, but
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like the conversation and the insights, and like you spoke to so much different Bitcoiners. You have you have a really rich anecdotal, like a treasury of anecdotal evidence, and you can create your own thinking and your own views from that. So I really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for sharing it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's like, I think this actually notes a history in my Bitcoin career, because I think this is the first podcast that I have been invited on where I mostly talked about treasury companies. I have a feeling that it will probably not be the last one, but this is the first one where someone invited me for my stance, not on Bitcoin, but for my stance on Bitcoin treasury companies specifically.
Right.
So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. And I was a little bit nervous even before, because I was like, oh, I can talk about Bitcoin, but can I talk about treasury companies? I don't know. Like, I don't feel like I've gathered enough information and evidence around that. I'm still in my discovery process, so I haven't made myself ready for trial. And so thank you so much for letting me for test running my thesis on treasury companies. And I hope it was a net benefit and value for you, for your audience, and for everyone that was watching and listening. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.